Have you ever been on a long flight, maybe crossing over the heart of India or the vast plains of Europe, and you just find yourself staring out the window?
Oh, all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do.
And from, 30,000 feet, all the chaos of daily life it vanishes. The traffic, the noise, the billboards, it's all gone.
And you're left with just patterns.
Exactly. Patterns, you see these incredible shapes etched onto the landscape. Some villages look like scattered seeds, just these random dots in a sea of green.
While others look like a perfect checkerboard, right, a grid pressed red into the earth.
And then you fly over a big city and it looks like a giant gray star with these concrete arms just reaching out into the countryside. It's fascinating.
It is a fascinating perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
We spend so much of our lives in a settlement, navigating the streets, but we so rarely get to zoom out and just look at it.
And that's really the question that sparked today's deep dive. Why do we live the way we do? Why is a city like Canberra designed to look like a geometric painting, while, say, Old Delhi feels like this beautiful, chaotic labyrinth?
Oh, it's definitely not random chance.
It can't be.
It's a code.
Yeah.
The layout of a village or a city, if you know how to read it, it tells you everything. It tells you about the history, the economics, the water table, even the social structure of the people who built it.
So it's geography, yes, but it's something more.
It's the story of
It's
us.
the story of us. I love that.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. Today, we are on a very, very specific mission. We are cracking open Chapter 10 of the NCERT Class 12 Human Geography book.
That's right. We're unpacking the topic of human settlements.
And this is a foundational text. If you're a student of geography, and especially if you're a UPSC aspirant, this chapter is what you'd call high yield.
Oh, it's absolutely high yield. It's just dense with concepts that appear again and again in the exams, both prelims and mains. So that's our goal today. We're going from the most basic mud hut all the way to the sprawling megacity. We'll look at why the 1991 census definition of a town is a classic exam trap.
Yes, the 75% rule.
That's the one. We'll get into that. And we'll analyze the morphology of planned cities like Addis, Ababa, and Canberra.
It's a huge journey. It covers the rural-urban dichotomy, the infrastructure crisis in developing nations, and really the future of our species as, well, an increasingly urban animal.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we do have to do a little bit of housekeeping. This particular deep dive is a special edition, and it's based on content from the Simplified UPSC by PPP Universe.
That's right. And look, we know you have a million things competing for your attention, but if you are finding value in this breakdown, if this is helping you visualize these concepts better than just staring at a textbook,
which is what we're aiming for,
then we'd humbly ask you to subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel.
It really does sound like a small thing, but it helped so much with boosting retention and getting this knowledge out to more aspirants who really need it.
And if you're in a position to do so, you want to make sure we can keep the lights on and keep producing this kind of super useful content, please do consider supporting the channel on Patreon.
A massive, warm shout out to all of our current supporters. You are genuinely the engine behind this. We couldn't do this without you.
We really couldn't.
And also, don't just be a passive listener. Engage with us. Like the video or the audio, leave a comment. Let us know what settlement pattern your hometown fits into. We'd love to hear it.
And for the serious students out there, the ones with the highlighters and the sticky notes, remember that there are free notes with practice previous year questions, or PYQs, available on the public Telegram channel.
The link is right there for you. And for those who want the full archive, the whole deep dive vault, so to speak.
The premium experience.
Exactly. There is a private Telegram library that gives you access to all the videos in this series at once, organized premium notes, detailed explanations, extra PYQs, and even model mains answers.
To get in, you just need to DM on the public Telegram channel.
Okay, housekeeping is complete. Let's get to work. Human settlements. Sounds so simple, right? A place where people live. I have a house. I live in a settlement. End of story.
Well, in a casual conversation, sure. But in geography, definitions are everything. Precision is key.
So what's the precise definition?
The text defines a human settlement as a place inhabited more or less permanently.
More or less permanently. Okay, I want to stick a pin in that phrase. Why the qualifier? Why not just permanently?
That's a great question. It's because human habitation really exists on a spectrum. If you go camping for the weekend, you pitch a tent, you leave on Sunday.
That's not a settlement.
No, of course not. That's a temporary campsite. But what about communities that move with the seasons? Think about nomadic herders.
Right, like in transhumance, where they move their livestock up to the mountains in the summer and down to the valleys in the winter.
Exactly. They might occupy a specific camp for 3 or 4 months every single year, for generations. Is that a settlement?
I would say yes. It's not permanent year-round, but the use of the space is permanent over time.
And that's why the definition is, more or less, it counts. The key idea here, and the text makes this beautiful point, is that the structures themselves can change. Houses can be redesigned, buildings altered, their functions can shift.
But the settlement continues.
The settlement itself continues in time and space. It's the human decision to cluster together in that specific spot that matters.
So it doesn't matter if it's a tiny hamlet of 5 huts or a megacity of 20 million people. The fundamental definition still holds.
The scale varies enormously, but the concept is identical. It's the physical manifestation of our social nature. We're social creatures. We rarely choose to live in complete isolation.
Okay, so from that basic definition, we get to the biggest divide in this entire topic. And frankly, in modern sociology and geography, the rural-urban dichotomy.
The Great Divide.
It feels intuitive, doesn't it? I know a farm when I see one, and I know a city when I see one. But the source material suggests it's not actually that black and white.
It's surprisingly slippery.
Yeah.
There is no single universal consensus on where the village ends and the city begins.
What's the first thing people usually reach for to define it?
Population.
That's the most common yardstick, population size. But it can be remarkably misleading.
How so? Give me an example. If I have, say, 10,000 people living in one place, isn't that a town?
Not necessarily. It depends entirely on where you are. Think about the population density in India or China compared to, say, Western Europe or North America.
It's a completely different scale. Exactly. We have villages in the Gangetic Plains that have populations larger than many officially recognized towns in France or the United States.
Yeah.
If you just used a raw number, let's say 5,000 people, you would end up misclassifying thousands of purely agricultural Indian villages as cities.
That's a great point. Just because 5,000 people live there doesn't mean it has urban infrastructure or an urban economy or an urban culture.
Precisely. So geographers needed a better metric. And the truest differentiator, the one that cuts through the noise, is economic function.
Follow the money, or I guess follow the labor.
Correct. You look at what people do for a living. Rural areas are dominated by primary activities.
So we're talking about a direct connection to the land and its resources.
Yes. Agriculture, fishing, forestry, lumbering, mining, animal husbandry. If the majority of people in a place wake up in the morning and their work involves extracting or cultivating something from nature, it's a rural settlement.
In urban.
Urban areas are dominated by the secondary and tertiary sectors. So that's manufacturing, processing, and then all the services. Trade, transport, administration, education, health.
Right. So even if you live in a place that looks like a village, with green spaces and single-family homes, if 90% of the people are commuting to an office park to write code or manage bank accounts.
Functionally, that is an urbanized lifestyle. The economy is urban.
The source also touches on the social fabric. This is maybe the softer side of geography, but it's just as important.
Yes. And this is where sociologists really get interested. Rural lifestyles are generally characterized by closer-knit social ties. The community is often smaller. Relationships are more personal, maybe more traditional.
In the village, everybody knows your name.
That's the stereotype, but there's a lot of truth to it. In the city, you might not even know your neighbor in the apartment right next door.
It's true.
Urban areas have a different social structure. It's often described as more complex, much faster paced, and significantly more anonymous. The text explicitly says that rural and urban lifestyles differ in social conditions and livelihood. It just creates a fundamentally different human experience.
Okay, this is all great for a conceptual understanding, but we need to get technical now. If you're a UPSC aspirant listening to this, this is the moment to sharpen your pencil or open your notes app.
Absolutely. This is a core memory item.
We need to talk about the Indian definition of an urban settlement. This comes straight from the Census of India, 1991.
And this is crucial. It's a favorite topic for examiners because it has very specific, very objective criteria. It's not vague at all. The census uses a two-fold classification to decide what counts as urban.
Twofold. Okay, let's break down the first fold. What is it?
The first is the statutory definition. This is purely administrative. A place is automatically classified as urban if it has a municipality, a corporation, a cantonment board, or a notified town area committee.
So if the government has officially declared it a town through one of these bodies...
It's a town, period. It doesn't matter what the population is or what people do for a living. If it has that administrative board, it's an urban area. That's the easy part.
That is pretty straightforward. But what about all those places that are growing really fast, these huge clusters of people, but the government just hasn't gotten around to officially upgrading them to a municipality yet?
Ah, that's where the second fold comes in. And this is the one that really gets tested. This is for what we call census towns.
Census towns.
And to be classified as a census town, a place has to satisfy 3 specific conditions simultaneously.
Simultaneously, that's the key word. All three must be true. Let's list them. What's condition number one?
A minimum population of 5,000 persons.
Okay, 5,000 people. That's the floor. Condition number two.
A density of population of at least 400 persons per square kilometer.
400 per square kilometer. So it has to be dense. It can't just be 5,000 people in a few farmhouses spread over a huge area.
Correct. It has to have a certain level of concentration.
And now for the third one. I have a feeling this is the trap.
This is absolutely the trap. Listen carefully. At least 75% of the male main working population must be engaged in non-agricultural pursuits.
Whoa, stop right there. Male workers, not the total workforce.
Specifically, the male main working population.
Why that distinction? In this day and age, why would they exclude women from this metric?
It's a reflection of the time and the economic structure when these definitions were really solidified. You have to remember, this is the 1991 census definition. At that time, female participation in agricultural labor was extremely high, but often it was informal, seasonal, or not even counted as work in the traditional sense.
So if you included the total workforce, almost no place would qualify as urban because so many women were working in the field.
Exactly. To see if a place was truly shifting its economic base away from agriculture towards an industrial or service economy, what was seen as a modern economy. They looked at what the men were doing as a proxy for the structural shift of the entire town.
That is a fascinating, if maybe slightly dated, slice of demographic history. But for the purpose of the exam, that's the catch you have to remember.
It is the #1 catch. In a multiple choice question, they will swap male workers with total workforce or total population. And if you click that, you lose the marks. You have to burn it into your brain. 75% of male main workers in non-agricultural sectors.
Crystal clear. Okay, so we've defined what a settlement is, and we've drawn the line, or at least the Indian census has drawn the line, between the farm and the factory. Let's go back to the roots. Let's talk about rural settlements in more detail.
Right, rural settlements are the ones most closely intertwined with the land. When we look at where villages spring up, we are really seeing a direct negotiation between human needs and what the environment offers.
The book lists a few key factors that dictate where people decide to build. I'm guessing water is number 1, 2, and 3 on that list.
It's absolutely the non-negotiable. The text refers to this as the wet point settlement concept, especially in the past. Before we had piped infrastructure, you had to be near water for drinking, for cooking, for washing.
And for irrigation.
Crucially for irrigation. So you see settlements clustered around rivers, lakes, and springs. It's the most logical place to start.
But wait, the source also mentions something called dry points. That sounds like a complete contradiction. How can you have both a wet point and a dry point being ideal?
It's the other side of the same coin. It depends on the surrounding environment. Think about a very wet region, maybe a river delta or a floodplain, like in parts of Bengal or Kerala.
Okay, so water is everywhere.
Water is everywhere. You need it, but you definitely don't want to be under it. So in these low-lying areas, these swamps or floodplains, people will specifically choose to settle on dry points. That means they build on uplands, on natural levees, or on terraces.
Ah, I see. So a wet point is settling near water in an otherwise dry area, and a dry point is settling on high ground in an otherwise wet area.
Precisely. It's all about water management. You want access, but you also want to avoid inundation.
Makes sense. What about the land itself for farming?
The quality of the land is paramount. People are always looking for fertile soil. And this plays out differently in different parts of the world. In Europe, you'll often see villages in rolling country, avoiding the swampy lowlands.
But in Southeast Asia, it's the opposite, right? People settle right in the low-lying river valleys and coastal plains?
They do, because that's where the rice grows. Wet rice cultivation requires that specific submerged topography. So the needs of the crop dictate the exact settlement location. The settlement serves the land.
Then we have building materials. I love seeing vernacular architecture, you know, how houses in one region look completely different from another.
And that is almost strictly a function of what is locally available. If you're in a forested region like parts of Scandinavia or Northeast India, you use wood. If you're in a rocky, mountainous area, you use stone. In the Great Plains of India or Africa, it's mud bricks.
So the settlement is literally built from the landscape it sits on.
It is. And the final major factor mentioned in the text is defense.
This was huge historically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We tend to forget how violent and unstable the past could be. During times of political turmoil or war, villages were strategically located on defensive hills or on islands.
We see that all over India, with forts on high ground and the settlements clustered around them.
We do. The text also gives the example from Nigeria of villages being built on inselbergs.
Inselbergs, what's that?
It literally means island mountain. These are isolated, steep-sided hills that rise abruptly from a plain. Villages would cluster around these standing rocks for protection against invaders. The village itself becomes a fortress.
So once people decide where to settle, finding that perfect sweet spot of water, soil, and safety, they start building. And the way they arrange their houses creates these distinct shapes we talked about.
Yes, and the text classifies these into types and patterns. We should probably break that down.
Let's do it. Let's start with the broad types.
The broadest categorization is usually based on density. So first, you have compact or nucleated settlements.
Nucleated, like a nucleus, everything packed in tight.
That's the image. A large number of houses built very, very close to each other. You typically find this in fertile river valleys and plains.
Why there specifically?
It's an economic decision. The land is so valuable for farming that you don't want to waste good soil on a sprawling backyard for your house. So you pack the housing into a tight cluster to maximize the arable fields around the village.
And I imagine it also fosters a very closely knit community.
It does. For better or for worse, everyone is in each other's business.
And the opposite of that would be?
Dispersed settlements. Here, the houses are spaced far apart. They're often interspersed with the fields themselves. You might see one house, then a huge stretch of farmland, then another house.
This is what I picture when I think of the American Midwest, or maybe the Scottish Highlands. A lone farmhouse on the hill.
Exactly. It often happens in hilly terrain or in areas with extensive large-scale agriculture where you need to be physically close to your specific plot of land. But the text makes an important note. Even though the houses are scattered, a cultural feature like a place of worship, a church or a temple or a central market often binds these scattered houses together into a single settlement identity.
So even if you can't see your neighbor, you know you both belong to the same community because you go to the same temple.
Precisely. There's a social glue holding the dispersed parts together.
Okay, now let's get to the really visual part, the geometry. This is the part I was alluding to in the intro. The patterns of rural settlements. I'm going to ask you to help our listeners visualize these. Let's imagine we're in a drone flying high overhead. What do we see?
Okay, let's fly. The first and most common one you'll see is a linear pattern.
Linear, a straight line.
Exactly. You see this where houses are arranged along a line feature. This is usually a major road, a railway line, a river, or the edge of a canal.
So everyone wants frontage on the main transport route.
Everyone wants access. So you get these two long rows of houses, often facing each other across the road or river. From above, it looks like a zipper.
A zipper. That's a great image. Okay, next up, rectangular pattern.
This looks like a grid. You find this in flat plains or in wide intermontane valleys. The roads tend to cut each other at right angles, creating these neat rectangular blocks for housing. It's very orderly, very efficient. It really does look like a checkerboard.
Got it. What about a circular pattern? That sounds interesting.
It is. Imagine a central feature, like a lake or a water tank. The houses are then built in a circle around it to give everyone equal access to the water.
That makes sense.
Sometimes this pattern was also used for defense. You build the houses in a circle to create a protected central area, a corral, where livestock could be kept safe at night from wild animals or raiders.
That's very clever. The village as a fortress again, shielding the vulnerable center. Now, what about the star-like pattern? This is my favorite image.
It's visually very striking. This develops where several roads converge at a central point. Think of a natural hub or a junction. Houses start building up along all the radiating roads.
So from the air, you have this dense center and then these arms of housing reaching out.
Looking exactly like a star. Or maybe an octopus. It's a very dynamic pattern that shows growth in multiple directions from a central node.
Beautiful. And then we get the alphabet soup of shapes. T-shaped, Y-shaped, cruciform.
These are all dictated by road junctions, pure and simple. A T-shaped settlement develops at a trijunction, a T intersection. You have housing along the top bar of the T and down the vertical stem.
And a Y-shaped settlement.
That's where two roads converge to join a third one. Housing gets built along all three arms of the road, creating that Y shape.
And finally, cruciform.
It just means cross-shaped. It develops at a standard crossroads where two roads intersect. The settlement then grows outwards along all four of those directions.
There's one more really interesting one mentioned, the double village.
Yes, this is a settlement that extends on both sides of a river, but it's connected by a bridge or a ferry service. It's really one single community, but it's physically split in two by the water.
It's amazing how the landscape and the roads literally draw the map of where and how we live. But, we have to take off the rose-colored glasses now. We've been describing these villages as these quaint geometric curiosities, but for the millions of people living in them, life can be incredibly hard.
It can. And the source material has a very important section on the problems of rural settlements.
It's reality check.
It is, and it pulls no punches. Especially in developing countries, the rural reality is often one of immense struggle, and the single biggest issue is the infrastructure deficit.
Let's unpack that. What does that mean on the ground?
Well, it starts with water again. The text explicitly mentions that people, particularly in mountainous and arid regions, have to walk long distances every single day just to fetch drinking water.
We talk about time poverty, and this is a perfect example.
Yeah?
Imagine spending 2 or 3 hours of your day just walking to get the most basic element of life.
Exactly. And it's not just an inconvenience, it's a massive health hazard. The water sources are often unprotected. So waterborne diseases like cholera, jaundice, and typhoid are tragically common.
And sanitation naturally goes hand in hand with water.
It does. The text highlights a general absence of toilets and proper garbage disposal facilities in many of these settlements. And this just perpetuates the cycle of poor health and disease.
The source also flagged some serious housing issues. We talked about using local materials as being, charming, but are they practical in the long run?
They have significant downsides. Houses made of mud, wood, and thatch are very susceptible to damage. Heavy rains and floods can destroy them easily. They require constant, laborious maintenance, often every single year.
And there was a very specific detail about ventilation that really stuck with me.
Yes, many of the traditional house designs are deficient in proper ventilation. But there's a specific cultural habit mentioned that makes this even worse. In many places, the animal shed and the fodder store are kept inside the house.
Inside, you mean under the same roof as the family?
Essentially, yes. This is done for a very practical reason: to protect the domestic animals and their food from wild animals or theft. But you can imagine the consequences for hygiene and air quality when you're living in a small, unventilated space with your livestock.
That is such a vivid detail. It paints a very clear picture of the struggle for security, protecting your primary assets, your animals, even at the cost of your own health and comfort.
And the final problem highlighted is connectivity. The prevalence of unmetalled roads, basically dirt roads, poses a unique and serious problem. During the rainy season, entire settlements can be completely cut off from the outside world.
So no access to emergency services, no way to get goods to the market.
None. It makes providing any kind of consistent health and education infrastructure incredibly difficult because the layout of the settlements is so scattered and the access is so seasonal and unreliable.
It's a really sobering list of challenges. It reminds us why rural development is such a massive and ongoing focus for governments around the world. Okay, let's shift gears. We're moving from the village to the city, segment 4, urban settlements.
The urban, the engines of the modern world. And it's really worth taking a moment to appreciate just how recent this whole phenomenon is.
The source had a fascinating stat about London, didn't it?
It did. London was the very first city in human history to reach a population of 1 million people. And that only happened around AD 1810.
1810. I mean, that's essentially yesterday in the grand scheme of human history. We've been around as a species for hundreds of thousands of years, but we've only really been living in big cities for about 200 of them.
It's an incredible transformation. In the year 1800, only about 3% of the world's population lived in urban settlements. Today, or at least at the time of the text's data, that figure is around 54%. It's an explosive, unprecedented shift in how our species lives.
We are becoming an urban species.
We already are.
So we've talked about how India defines a town, but globally, the classification criteria vary a lot, don't they?
They vary wildly. We've already touched on population size and occupational structure, which differ from country to country. But let's look at administration and location again in a global context.
We mentioned that in India, you need that official municipality or board. How does that compare to, say, South America?
It's very different. The text gives the example of Brazil and Bolivia. Yeah. In those countries, any administrative center is considered urban, regardless of its population size.
Wow. So it could be a tiny village of 200 people, but if it's an administrative headquarters for the area,
It's officially classified as urban.
that must make comparing global urbanization statistics a complete nightmare.
It does. You always have to look at the local definition. Then there's the factor of location. The location of most urban centers is dictated by their function. Strategic towns need a natural defense. Mining towns need to be near the minerals. Industrial towns need raw materials and energy sources.
And port cities need a natural harbor. Tourist centers need a beach or beautiful scenery.
Exactly. But here's the modern twist the text points out. Technology is fundamentally changing this equation. Piped water, transported building materials, and electrical grids mean that cities can now be located far away from their essential raw materials.
Right. You don't need to be right next to the forest to build a wooden house anymore. You can just truck the wood in from hundreds of miles away.
And this leads us to a classic geographical distinction that's very important. The difference between site and situation.
Okay, define those for us. They sound similar.
They do, but they're different. The site of a city is the actual ground it stands on. It's the physical terrain, the hill, the riverbank, the swampy land.
Okay, the immediate physical place.
Yes. The situation, on the other hand, is the city's location relative to its surroundings. It's about its connection to trade routes, its access to a fertile hinterland, its relationship with other cities.
So a city could have a terrible site, maybe it's built on a marsh, but an amazing situation because it's at the mouth of a major navigable river that connects to the entire interior of a continent.
That is a perfect example. And historically, cities with a good situation, those located close to important trade routes, have experienced the most rapid and sustained development.
Let's talk about the functions of these urban centers. Cities do things.
They absolutely do. The earliest towns were centers of administration, trade, industry, defense, and religion. Over time, the text notes that defense and religion have become less dominant as the primary defining features of most cities, though, of course, they still exist.
And new functions have emerged to take their place.
Many new functions. Recreational towns, residential or commuter towns, mining towns, manufacturing centers, and the newest kid on the block, ICT town centers for information and communication technology.
The text mentions that towns can specialize, but also that they're dynamic. They can change over time.
Yes, this is a key insight. We often label a city by its most dominant function. Sheffield is an industrial city. Chandigarh is an administrative city. But these labels aren't static. A fishing port in 19th century England might be a major tourist hub today. A small market town can evolve into a massive manufacturing center.
So as cities grow, their functions diversify. A huge metropolis does a bit of everything.
It has to. It becomes a command and control center for all those functions.
Speaking of cities that were designed to do specific things, let's talk about planned cities. We have two major case studies in the source material, Addis Ababa and Canberra. Let's start in Africa. Addis Ababa.
A fascinating case study. The name itself is beautiful. Addis Ababa means the new flower in Amharic.
The new flower. And it was established when?
In 1878. It's the capital city of Ethiopia.
What's unique about its morphology, its physical form?
Well, it's located on a hill-valley topography, so it's not flat. And the layout is very specific. The road network radiates out from the government headquarters, specifically from the major roundabouts known as Piazza, Arad Kilo, and Amist Kilo.
So it has that starlight quality we talked about with rural settlements, but here it's intentionally planned around centers of power.
Precisely. And it serves as a nodal center for the entire country. It has a multi-faculty university, a medical college. It's the terminal for the crucial Djibouti-Addis Ababa rail route. And it has the major international airport, Bole.
And the market. The text makes a point of mentioning the Mercado.
The Mercado, yes. It's cited as the largest open-air market between Cairo and Johannesburg. It grew more organically over time, adding this vibrant, almost chaotic commercial heart to the planned administrative skeleton of the city.
It's an incredible mix of the planned and the spontaneous.
It is.
Okay, let's fly from Ethiopia all the way to Australia. Canberra. This feels like a very different vibe.
A completely different world, really. Canberra was planned from scratch, specifically to be the capital of Australia back in 1912.
And they held a competition for the design, right?
They did, and they hired an American landscape architect named Walter Burley Griffin.
Griffin, that's a name that comes up in exams. What was his big idea?
His vision was for a garden city. He didn't want a dense concrete jungle. He wanted wide open spaces, extensive parks, and large gardens to be integral parts of the city's fabric.
So how was it organized?
The design features 5 main centers, each with its own separate functions. This is a very highly zoned city. This is where the government buildings are. This is for commerce. This is for residential, and so on.
And did it take off immediately? Was it an instant success?
Actually, no. The text notes that its growth was initially quite slow. It was seen as a bit of a remote artificial city. But after World War II, it expanded significantly. It really stands now as a prime example of a meticulously planned city in a developed country.
And that contrast between planned and unplanned growth brings us nicely to the hierarchy of settlements. We throw around words like town, city, megacity, but there's a ladder here, isn't there?
There is. There's a clear urban hierarchy. At the base, you have the town. And the text distinguishes a town from a large village, not just by its size, but by its functions. Things like manufacturing, retail, wholesale trade, and professional services.
Okay, and one step up from a town is a city.
A city is essentially a leading town. It's a town that has outstripped its local rivals in size and, more importantly, in the complexity of its functions. The text quotes the urbanist Lewis Mumford here.
What was his definition?
He defined the city as the physical form of the highest and most complex type of associative life.
That's a heavy quote. Complex associative life. What does that really mean to you?
To me, it means it's the place where all the intricate webs of human interaction, economic, social, political, cultural, come together in their most dense and intense form. Cities have major transport terminals, big financial institutions, regional government offices. They are the command centers.
And when a city gets really, really big,
It becomes a million city. This is a simple population metric. Once it crosses the 1 million mark, it enters this category.
and the source also briefly lists categories like conurbation, which is when towns and cities merge together, and megalopolis, which is a supercity or a chain of connected cities. But focusing on that million city, we're seeing a massive rise in these, especially in the developing world.
A huge rise.
And that leads us directly to the darker side of this rapid urbanization, the urban crisis.
Yes, the text is very candid about the problems of urban settlements in developing countries, and it starts with what it calls an unsustainable concentration of population.
So, too many people moving to the city for jobs and opportunities, but the city just can't expand its services fast enough to handle them.
That's the core of the problem. And it leads directly to the proliferation of slums and squatter settlements.
I have the stat here from the notes, and it's just staggering. Squatter settlements are growing twice as fast as the rest of the cities.
It's an almost unbelievable statistic. And in the Asia-Pacific region, the text says that around 60% of the entire urban population lives in these squatter settlements. These are illegal, or at least informal, substandard housing areas with no security of tenure.
Why is this happening on such a massive scale?
It's the classic economic push and pull. Decreasing opportunities and land fragmentation in rural areas push people out. The perceived promise of jobs and a better life in the city pulls them in. This creates a huge pool of unskilled or semi-skilled labor in the city.
But the urban labor market is already saturated.
It's saturated. So you get widespread underemployment and persistent poverty, even in the city.
And this creates a whole host of sociocultural problems.
Indeed. The cities simply don't have the financial resources to build enough schools and hospitals for this massive influx of people. So the text paints a pretty gloomy picture. Health indices are poor, and the lack of education and employment opportunities tends to aggravate crime rates.
There's also a demographic distortion that's mentioned.
Yes, the sex ratio. We often see what's called male selective migration. It's predominantly young men who move to the city in search of work, often leaving their families behind in the village.
And this creates a huge imbalance in the cities.
A significant imbalance, with far more men than women in certain age groups, which can lead to its own set of social problems.
And finally, of course, the environment takes a massive hit.
A massive hit. Waste disposal is a full-blown crisis in many of these cities. Domestic and industrial waste is often dumped into sewers or just left in unspecified locations. Potable water becomes scarce and contaminated. Air pollution from burning traditional fuels and from unregulated industry is severe.
And the text introduces the concept of urban heat islands.
Yes, this is so relevant today with climate change. All the concrete structures and paved surfaces in a city absorb and retain heat from the sun. This creates localized zones of high temperature, these heat islands, that make the city significantly hotter than the surrounding green countryside.
So we've built these incredible engines of associative life, as Mumford called them, but they're overheating, both literally and metaphorically.
That's a very fair assessment of the situation in many parts of the developing world.
Okay, let's try to bring this all together. We've covered a huge amount of ground. We started with the basic definition of a settlement, that more or less permanent human footprint on the land.
Though we dove into the rural world, its wet points and dry points, its star-shaped and linear villages, and the very real struggles with water and housing.
From there, we moved to the city, defined by its function and its administration. We looked at the grand plans of Addis Ababa and Canberra.
And finally, we stared down the barrel of the urban crisis in the developing world. The slums, the pollution, the inequality, the heat islands.
It's a journey from the simplest mud hut to the most complex and often troubled megacity. So, what's the big takeaway? So what? Why does a UPSC aspirant, or just a curious citizen, need to know all this?
Because the form of our settlements reflects our relationship with the environment and with each other. It's the physical manifestation of our society. When you see a linear village, you are seeing humans adapting to a river or a road. When you see a planned city like Canberra, you're seeing humans trying to impose a rational order on nature.
And understanding this helps us see the challenges we face now.
Precisely. We are moving inexorably towards a world that is majority urban. The problems of the million city, the slums, the water shortages, the heat islands, these are not niche issues. These are the defining challenges of our future civilization. Balancing this explosive urbanization with some form of sustainability, that's the whole game now.
That is the so what. It's not just about reading maps. It's about trying to map out a better future. Now, as we wrap up, here's a provocative thought to leave you with. The source text briefly mentioned ICT, information and communication technology, bringing new functions to settlements. We touched on it. But let's really think about this for a second.
Okay.
If work can effectively be done from anywhere, if I can log into my office in a million city from a dispersed settlement up in the mountains, will the linear and compact patterns of the past, patterns dictated by physical proximity, just dissolve?
That is the big question, isn't it? Will the heat islands and the congestion of the megacities push us back towards the Garden City idea, but a digitally connected version of it? Will we see a great de-urbanization where digital geography finally starts to overpower physical geography?
Or will that need for complex associative life, that here pull to be together in the chaotic, creative mess of a city, always win out in the end? Something to mull over.
Indeed. A lot to think about.
Listeners, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We really hope this helped to clarify Chapter 10 for you in a way that sticks.
And if you found value in this, if it was helpful, please do subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel. It really makes a huge difference for us.
And please consider supporting us on Patreon if you can. Every little bit helps us keep the lights on and this content flowing. We truly appreciate it.
Don't forget to check the public Telegram channel for those free notes and PYQs. They are an absolutely vital part of your preparation.
And for that premium experience, the full library, the organized notes, the model answers, you can join the private Telegram library. Just send a DM on the public channel to get in.
Please like the video, share your comments below. We read them all, and we genuinely love hearing from you.
Until next time, keep looking at the landscape around you. There's a story in every single settlement.
Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.